The torso lay in the weeds without a head. Two teenage boys found it on September 23, 1935, near the banks of the Cuyahoga River in an industrial stretch of Cleveland known as Kingsbury Run. The body had been cut cleanly at the neck. There was no face to identify, no fingerprints to check. The skin was pale and drained of blood. Whoever had done this had taken time, and whoever the victim had been, that identity was now gone. Police secured the area and searched for additional remains. They found nothing that day beyond the decapitated body. The coroner's examination revealed careful dismemberment. The head had been removed with precision, not hacked apart in frenzy. The cut followed anatomical lines. It suggested someone who understood joints, cartilage, and how to separate a body efficiently. Cleveland in the mid-1930s was under economic strain. The Great Depression had pushed many into makeshift settlements along rail yards and riverbanks. Kingsbury Run was filled with unemployed laborers, drifters, and families living in shacks built from scrap wood and tin. If the victim had been one of them, there might be no employer, no landlord, no immediate family demanding answers. Within weeks, another body surfaced. This time, parts were found in different locations. The pattern began to form. Heads were removed, limbs severed. In several cases, coroners concluded the victims had still been alive when decapitation occurred. There were signs of strangulation or blunt force trauma before the cutting began. The mutilation was systematic, not chaotic. By early 1936, newspapers had given the killer a name: the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Sensational headlines described headless torsos and scattered remains. Citizens who never set foot near the river now followed every development. Fear crept into streetcars and factories. Parents kept children indoors after dark. Eliot Ness, recently appointed Cleveland's public safety director, inherited the case. Already famous for his work against organized crime in Chicago, Ness faced a different kind of enemy here, one who left bodies but no identity, who erased evidence by removing the most recognizable parts. Ness organized task forces, coordinated with county officials, and ordered detailed forensic examinations. Each new discovery was photographed, measured, cataloged. Identification proved painfully slow. Some victims were eventually named through dental records, distinctive tattoos, or prior arrest files. Others remained unknown. Several were labeled simply as John Doe or Jane Doe, buried without names. The killer seemed to choose victims on the margins: transient men, women with unstable housing, people whose disappearances would not trigger immediate searches. In January 1936, the dismembered remains of Florence Polillo were discovered. She was one of the few victims identified quickly. Her death intensified pressure on law enforcement. This was no longer just nameless drifters. It was a known woman, a life documented before being reduced to pieces. The brutality escalated in public view. In August 1936, 2 torsos were discovered within sight of Ness's own office. The bodies had been placed brazenly, as if to send a message. Public outrage surged. Editorials demanded results. Ness responded aggressively. Convinced the killer might be hiding within the Kingsbury Run shantytown, he ordered raids and the burning of dozens of makeshift shelters. Police questioned residents, detained suspects, searched for hidden rooms or blood stains. No arrest followed. Between 1935 and 1938, 12 victims were officially linked to the Cleveland torso murders. 10 were men. 2 were women. Most were decapitated. Many were dismembered into multiple sections and scattered. Some remains showed evidence of chemical treatment, suggesting attempts to slow decomposition or obscure time of death. The killer demonstrated patience and anatomical skill. Among the primary suspects was Dr. Francis E. Sweeney, a physician with surgical training and documented mental instability. Sweeney had served in World War I and reportedly struggled with alcoholism. He voluntarily underwent questioning and polygraph examinations administered by one of the pioneers of lie detection. Reports indicated he failed the tests, but polygraphs were not admissible in court, and there was no physical evidence tying him to the crimes. Sweeney eventually committed himself to a psychiatric hospital, where he remained for decades. During that time, Eliot Ness reportedly received taunting postcards believed to be from him. Still, prosecutors lacked the proof necessary to bring charges. The case remained circumstantial. Other suspects emerged: slaughterhouse employees accustomed to dismembering animals, railroad workers with access to isolated dumping grounds, transient laborers who drifted between cities. None could be definitively connected to multiple murders. Without witnesses, confessions, or preserved forensic evidence, the investigation stalled. The killings appeared to stop in 1938. Whether the murderer died, relocated, or altered his methods remains unknown. Similar dismemberment murders occurred in Pennsylvania around the same period, leading some investigators to suspect a geographic shift. No conclusive link was ever established. For the families of identified victims, there was no closure. For the unidentified, there was not even a confirmed name to mourn. The brutality of the crimes overshadowed the people themselves. They were remembered by where they were found, by the condition of their bodies, by autopsy reports that described cuts and separations in clinical language. The Cleveland torso murders left a permanent scar on the city's history. The killer demonstrated control, anatomical knowledge, and a willingness to escalate despite intense media attention. He operated in industrial corridors, near railroad tracks and riverbanks, areas busy enough to provide cover, yet isolated enough to dispose of remains. Eliot Ness eventually left Cleveland, his reputation complicated by the case he could not solve. The Mad Butcher became a figure of enduring speculation, studied in criminology circles, and revisited in books and documentaries. The evidence boxes remain part of the historical record, filled with photographs, diagrams, and unanswered questions. 12 official victims, several still unnamed, a primary suspect who was never charged, a murderer who vanished without confession or conviction. Nearly a century later, the Cuyahoga River flows past redeveloped neighborhoods. The shantytowns of Kingsbury Run are gone. But the case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved serial homicides, a reminder that precision and patience can conceal a killer for decades. The heads were never found for most of them. The hands that committed the crimes were never cuffed. And the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run was never brought to justice. Thank you for listening to Homicide Files. Subscribe for more true crime stories.